Thanks a lot for this opportunity. I'm happy to be up here. My name's Arun. This is Mike. This is going to be a nuts and bolts session, and I couldn't have timed this better if I'd actually tried to do it, because what we're going to be talking about today is how do you actually use all of this data that's being generated? Because somebody mentioned human in the loop, the human factor. Ultimately, humans scale linearly or sublinearly, whereas the data is scaling exponentially. So it's very, very important we manage the data, present it. The UX, the UI of how you show the data, how people use it is something we're going to talk about today. Very thankful for Mike here, who's taken the time, and he's offered to show how they use their Viz One MAM system. They've been using the Vizrt MAM system for about 8 to 9 years now. They manage about a 90,000 hour archive of video with incredibly rich metadata. And I'm not going to talk too much. We don't have a lot of slides here. I'm literally going to let's skip straight through. So these are the things we're going to talk about and show you. We're actually going to show a couple of videos of the UI. How do we manage the search infrastructure within this MAM system, and how we leverage the search and logging capabilities to manage this large an archive? Mike, do you want to come up and say a few words before we start playing the video?
So, yeah, as Arun said, we started back in 2010 with what was called RDOM at the time. We actually had less than 50 users. Currently, we now have over 250 users in our system. We were on one department, which was just our building that was just creating video for television. And now we are actually over 6 departments in the tour. We also have our network partners access our system as well. There's about 4 or 5 other outside entities. Back in 2013, we gave the network partners access, and then around that same time, we built MAM over the internet, is what we call it, which we allowed access anywhere in the world. So when our producers need access to it, they can actually access it anywhere that they want, whether it be tablets, phones, anything. We also started with about just over 50 points of metadata at that time. We're now over 250 points of metadata. And we'll go ahead and do the video now.
Could we roll the first video, please?
Is it embedded?
Yeah, no, it's they have to play the video.
Okay. So this one's going to, although it's cut off on the left-hand side, but what it basically is, this is our asset management system. There's 100,000 videos that we have now. We call facets that are up top, and what those facets are the structured metadata that we actually have. So as I'm clicking through it, I call it the cars.com, it narrows its search down. So as I go through, you'll see it takes about, say, 15 seconds. I just narrowed down 100,000 assets to now 8 assets. It was that quickly to be able to get to where I needed to get to. So just because of the fact that we have that structured metadata allows me to quickly and easily find something. So for instance, when a user wants to find a tee shot of Tiger Woods in the last year that went over 300 yards, they'll just click on those. They'll go ahead and put over 300 yards, and then bang, up will pop all of them. And then it'll actually say, oh, these are my camera angles. Do you want it to be one from the back, one from the side, one from this angle? And they can actually go into that metadata as well. So it allows us to very quickly, easily find stuff. One of the big parts of it, too, is one of our integrations is with ShotLink. ShotLink is our official scoring system. So when we initially started out, we were getting ShotLink data that we pumped into our logging system, but it was only for player name, hole information, and course information. And then after a couple of years, we said we want all the other data that comes with it. The one different thing with golf compared to other sports is that we have 18 playing fields. So on a given Thursday, Friday, we have over 10,000 shots. There may only be 300 or 400 that actually make air. So we don't need all of that data. So we only pull in the data that actually is relevant to the video shot that actually occurred. So this one is just going through stuff like this was a piece from 1957 that somebody was actually just clicking on and viewing and seeing. We were talking analytics before, so we have a lot of analytics that we actually surround this. When we first started, we were bringing in less than 5,000 hours a year. We're now bringing over 10,000 hours a year. We also have, out of that 100,000, we've only used 46,000 of them once or more. We've actually used over 12,000 of them more than once. And so that's the type of information that we try to glean from here so that we actually can better, plan for future things that we're doing. Dixon is our logging system. We have customized it entirely off of scoring our ShotLink, what the buttons are. So we're no longer misspelling any words, player names, or any of that information. We do integrate with EVS. We integrate with Avid. We have a couple of other API integrations in here as well. We can go to the second slide as well, or the second video. Or do you want to talk about the...
Sure. So underlying all of that search, all of that search is essentially Solar, Apache Solar, with a really sophisticated metadata mapping scheme. Our schema system is called Viz Data Format. It's what allows you to extensively add all of that rich metadata, the structured metadata that you see there, and drill down to find the piece of content you're looking for. Because if you can't find it, you may as well not have it, right? So essentially, the UI and UX that you use to manipulate and use the data points that you get back from an ML pipeline or the AI pipeline is as important as the process. Because ultimately, what are you going to do with all that data, right? You need the humans in the loop to be able to use it effectively, and that's essentially what we're trying to show here. There's faceted search that you saw there. The system scales to tens of millions of assets, and once you move to a cloud environment, potentially hundreds of millions of assets. The next video is going to show in detail the representation of multiple layers of metadata per clip, the logging system that Mike was talking about, essentially.
Right.
The second video, please.
So you'll see a line there. There's green and yellow. There's like two different green ones. That allows us to have different log tracks for every single video that we have, so we can actually separate it that way. So if you want to search just for the spoken word, you can actually search just for the spoken word. If you just want to search for our Dixon logging one, you can search for that. If you want to search for just for logos, you can search for just that. And so that's what the different ones that are inside of there are. We're kind of preparing and getting ourselves ready for actually adding in more metadata, whether it be social stuff or any other content that there are, so that we can actually separate the searches so that it's just not one big, huge dumping ground where people actually search against it and can't find what they actually want to find. Another thing I do want to mention as well, somebody had brought up so we've been, for the last 6 to 8 months, we've been working on doing the automatic highlight creation and learning that process as well. Probably the last 4 months we've gone live with it. We are taking our ShotLink data and sending it off, adding some machine learning to it, and then it's actually creating a play-by-play, which is basically a log on that. And then what we're doing is we're actually setting rules based off of in-game. So if somebody from Spain actually gets a birdie, it'll automatically email our international department. Or you can do a post-game one, which is say, I want a 5-minute highlight of the top player in the round. And it'll actually just automatically stitch that together. And I would say it's gone very, very well so far for us. And the other thing that we're starting to explore as well is something called the content relevancy engine. We have it in our graphics department, and what that is we've fed the last 25 years of ShotLink data to it. And now if you actually go and say, hey, Phil Mickelson on the 17th hole at this tournament, it'll come back with relevant ShotLink statistical information. Oh, he's birdied it 5 times over the last 10 years. And so what we're trying to do then is actually marry that up with video eventually. It's going to be it'll be a little bit of a process, but just to say, hey, we're showing that graphically, that these are some statistics that actually come back from this relevancy engine, but then we actually want to eventually show video that actually works with it as well.
Thanks, Mike. The other thing I wanted to add to the discussion around depicting the logging interface and the view that the user has is the ability to both separately and together search different silos of information. Because the representation you see there, go to the next slide, please. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we don't have that shot. Never mind. The representation you see there allows you to look at basically every kind of data that they have in the system, the facial detection data, the object detection data, logo detection, speech transcription, you can turn off and on and search against any combination of these. I think it's the key point here is that when you're searching such a rich metadata archive, you need to cater not just to the casual user, you need to cater to the expert user as well, especially in the case of an archive. Right. Because these people really know their data. And the more data you add to it, the more the ability they have to find the content in the library. As Mike said, they've only ever retrieved half their archive more than once, actually once, and 12% of the archive more than once. Is that because that's all the content that's useful? Maybe not. Maybe it's because we haven't yet been able to find the content that can be used. So again, I'll just leave you with the thought that you want to optimize the presentation layer of this entire pipeline as much as the data generation layer. And it's very important that to remember that you're working with both casual users and expert users. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions. Thanks.
Got time for probably one or two. These two right here.
Yeah. So sometimes the hard, let's say, par putt is more dramatic than the easy birdie shot.
Right.
How well does your machine learning process how well has it adapted to sort of the emotional feel like they were talking about in the previous verse just?
Yeah, so we've been that's part of actually the learning process that we actually had. One of the things that it initially started out with was it would show the 2-foot birdie putt, but it wouldn't show the approach shot that actually got him to within 2 feet. And so we actually had to tell it, hey, you know what? That's probably more important than the 2-foot birdie putt. And it does also take into consideration crowd noise. So if a guy makes a shot that's 25 feet long, even if it is a par, then it actually, if there's crowd noise that's along with it as well, then it benefits in that way.
Michael, quick question. You guys are accumulating a very large data set of all sorts of different types of things. I'm curious if within PGA there's any data groups, there's any marketing groups, there's any other groups that aren't production operations who have started to realize you guys are sitting on this treasure trove of data and they're starting to come up with other ways of using it that are a little less direct than using it for production.
Right. So we do have another group. There's a guy he's actually the VP of data. And so we've been in numerous different talks with him because he knows that we have it. He's actually starting to look into bringing that data in. And the reason is the commissioner on a Monday morning will come to his group and be like, hey, what happened here? What happened here? And some of it's telecast related. And so it goes to our broadcasting team, and then our broadcasting team will have to actually piece stuff together based off of that data. So we're at the very beginning part of that. I would imagine that with a year from now, if you ask me, it'll be fully baked. But yeah, there's no question that we're in the larger picture with the entire company. Yep.
Cool. Thanks again, guys. Appreciate it. Great presentation.